Hi, everybody. This is Kate with Glazers. I hope you're having a great week. We're starting the week off with a live broadcast. We haven't done that in some time, I think, on a Monday. And actually, I think it's been a couple of weeks since we did one of these. So welcome to everybody tuning in today. Before we dive into our topic, I just wanted to take a couple of moments to just talk about and remind folks that the store is obviously open Monday through Sunday. So we're open 7 days a week with the exception of some of those major holidays, of course. And if you want to make purchases, obviously you can do that through our website. You can come in and browse. We can do curbside pickup. We do shipping, all the good things. I did want to let you all know that we have also just recently launched our PhotoFest event. So that is June 10th through the 13th. If you go to our website and go to the events page, you will see the calendar of events so far. We are continuing to add speakers to that event. But there will be mostly speakers online. We're going to do at least one photo walk. And of course, as always, that is generally our biggest sale of the year. So you'll be able to shop online or in store to take advantage of all of those special discounts happening over those days. So that's June 10th through the 13th. It's our 12th year doing PhotoFest, so we're excited to bring it back again this year. Now, on to our topic of the day. We're going to talk about filters. We're going to talk about diffusion filters, with a bit of a focus on a specialty filter called the Black Pro Mist filter. And we have two folks from Tiffen with us. Primarily, we're going to chat with Fernando, who's got a little presentation. And of course, as always, if you have questions during that presentation, just post those in the chat on YouTube or the comments on Facebook, and we'll do some Q&A at the end. If those questions are able to be answered just in the chat, you might find Devin or myself here at the store answering those via the chat as well. So don't be shy with those. As always, ask as many questions as you want, and we'll do our best to get all of them answered. So I'm going to introduce Fernando, but you go by Nando, is that correct?
Yeah, for short. That's fine.
Okay.
Fernando, Nando, whatever it is.
So can you tell us a little bit about you and your role with Tiffen, or is that baked into your presentation?
I'm the Western Regional Sales Manager here at Tiffen. So Tiffin's one of the brands, the core brands that we do. Basically, Western half of the United States. I've been involved in the business for about 30 years, so been around a long time, and
Okay.
it's great to be at Tiffen now. So
Cool. Awesome. Well, and we also have Brian Byrne on the line here, who's also with Tiffen. I know he's not going to be on camera very much, but there is another person hiding out in the background there. So if you have questions, again, just that reminder, get those questions posted in the comments or in the chat, and we'll be happy to share those in our little Q&A session at the end. Also be curious to know if you're using any diffusion filters. If so, are you using a Black Pro Mist filter yet, or are you just curious about what they can do and how maybe they can elevate or change your work? So get those kinds of things posted in the comments as well. All right, with all that said, Nando, why don't we go ahead and kick off with your presentation, and we'll go from there.
All right, so here we go. Very briefly, I want to work my way through Tiffen. Let's talk about the company a little bit. A lot of people don't know it is in fact a family company. Tiffen is the last name, so right now we're at third generation of the family involved in manufacture of filters, et cetera. So we're about 80 years into the company. If you see this slide, we've got the Tiffen family holding some Emmys that they won. We've also won Oscars for innovations in filters, et cetera. So very, very deeply entrenched in Hollywood and in just the photo and video industry in general. Very famous name. One thing we're really proud of too, a lot of people don't know this, is that a Tiffen filter is made in the United States. They come off our factory, which is in Hauppauge, Long Island in New York. So again, we're very proud of that. We have our offices there, the headquarters there. We have our technical offices here where I work out in Burbank, California. And we have an office in the Pinewood Studios over in the UK. So again, we're very tapped into the motion picture industry. One of the key thing I want to sort of emphasize from this page is if you'll see there, 1951, Tiffen came up with a proprietary technology they called color core technology. The effect of our filters is laminated between two pieces of glass. The reason I bring this up, as we get to talking about our diffusion filters and the black pro mist filters, the beauty of that effect being sandwiched, it's going to be the same. It's going to be consistent, no matter what size format you might be involved in, what size filter, et cetera, et cetera. So let's advance a little bit here. As I said, Tiffen Filters, the Tiffen company, been involved in the business very, very long time. So we are there at all levels of the industry, whether the drone up through the mirrorless and the DSLR, of course, and then all the way up with the larger filters, the 4x5, 6.5 inches, and the 6.6 inch square. These big, beautiful chunks of glass that are in front of the big motion picture cameras, cinema cameras, all the stuff being shot out there. We are the brand really in that market. Lots of different types of filters we sell, of course, the polarizers, the color, et cetera, et cetera. We're here to talk about diffusion today. The last several years, we have had an incredible rise in the amount of diffusion filters being sold. And I trace that back to the convergence of stills and video. I think it was around maybe 2008, 2009 or so. Certainly when I was always in a place where I've been selling cameras and stuff in this marketplace for a long time. And all of a sudden, 2008, we had a camera called the 5D Mark II came out. So you had people coming in that were suddenly asking about the video, about the HD video that the camera could do, et cetera, et cetera. And in that marketplace, your traditional wedding photographer or fashion photographer, or commercial photographer, et cetera, you're being asked for video just as much as you are being asked for stills nowadays. So once that happened, we have HD. Nobody looks good in HD, first of all, okay? And then we have the harsher video that came around. Now we have 4K and 8K. So diffusion filters are around to take a little bit of an edge off of this really harsh video, right? So we've specifically with the Black Pro Mist right now, I mean, incredible rise in the numbers of these things that we're selling. And I mean, we can't make them fast enough at this point. It's been a large sort of, I could attribute that to popularity online, of blogging, vlogging. There's some influencers out there that started using Black Pro Mist and spoke so highly of it, and it's just blown up like crazy. So we have a bunch of the different filter manufacturers in the market are sort of rushing into this space, this diffusion space that Tiffen's been in for like 80 years. So we've got manufacturers that are kind of naming their filters, the copycat type filters, they're kind of naming them with a play on the Black Pro Mist. They might arrange the words differently. We've got people using different colored filter rings, et cetera. But a lot of these filters are basically copycats of some of our diffusion filters. Many times you'll see other filters being described as, oh, it gives off the effect like like a Black Pro Mist, So it's great to be sort of the de facto kind of a brand name in this diffusion space. So again, one of the benefits of the MPTV, of the diffusion filters, MPTV filters, is you can sort of create your intended effect in the camera and put your stamp on the image in the camera. Particularly important, saves a ton of time in post-production on your on the 4K, on the video footage, right? As opposed to having to set something and have it render overnight or for a day or whatever it is. So that's a great way of sort of capturing and saving a bunch of time. It's also a way for a DP, director of photography, to sort of put a stamp on the raw footage that's coming in. A lot of these sort of in the content creation world right now, we have the Netflix and Amazon and all this stuff being made for online streaming, et cetera, et cetera. You can't submit, you have to submit sort of raw footage where things aren't manipulated in camera. All the settings are kind of zeroed out and give them a basic sort of a raw file to work with. Well, it's a way for you as a DP to sort of get a little more control over your footage and the look of things by having some filtration or some filter effect up front that the optics are going through, right? So again, another beauty of the benefit of using the filter in camera and capturing it in camera is the way you capturing in real world, the way that light is sort of bouncing and wrapping around a person and affecting. So you're getting this effect in 3D. It's much nicer than just having this 2D sort of filter effect being created in editing. Nowadays those programs have gotten much more sophisticated, but it's just so nice and time saving to be able to capture that in camera. Going to advance here. So specifically we're here today to talk about the Black Pro Mist, which is one of, I don't know, roughly about maybe 30, and I may be undercounting this, but roughly about 30 filters that diffusion filters that we have here at Tiffen. So the Black Pro Mist, very popular motion picture effect. It creates an atmosphere by softening the excess contrast and sharpness of sort of the images, right? Very noticeable, sort of one of the characteristics of Black Pro Mist is it creates this glow, this kind of pearlescent halo around light sources. So it kind of gives off this romantic sort of painterly, little bit of a pastel-y type effect. And it's toning down what we've talked about here, the excessive sharpness and harshness of today's unforgiving, high resolution digital sensors and ultra sharp lenses. I remember people always come in and want to talk about how sharp a lens is and how, great, and they look at line pairs and all that stuff. It's like, that may not give you the most expressive, most beautiful image, So Black Pro Mist is designed to sort of tone that down and tone down this really clinical looking footage and clinical sort of images that you get off these high resolution cameras nowadays. So again, speaking specifically to the Black Pro Mist is just an alternative version of what a Pro Mist filter that Tiffen made. So black has the same characteristics of the Pro Mist filter, but what it does is it's the black aspect of it, the little black material that's in there, it's gonna provide like a less lifting of the shadows, less lightening of shadows. So some people find that to be a much more pleasing effect. Getting back to the color core technology I talked about at the beginning, same effect in the round filters that are really popular now, in the consumer, et cetera, as in the square and rectangular motion picture TV filters. So I tell you that because when you're using a small Black Pro Mist 1/4 or an 1/8 on your 52 millimeter size or 77 millimeter size, if you ever advance up into the bigger cameras, which you need bigger filters, a Black Pro Mist 1/4 in the large cinema filter is exactly the same effect as a Black Pro Mist 1/4 in a little round that you may have on your mirrorless or your DSLR. Let's go here and advance a couple items here. Example here on the left-hand side of your screen is what a Black Pro Mist does, kind of in a sort of a landscape here environment. Pay particular attention to the halation around the light sources. You'll see that, and the softening around the light sources, a kind of a glow. And you'll also see a lifting in the shadows. So take a look at the shadow detail where it's kind of opening up those shadows. Let's get to another slide here. On the left-hand side, we have Black Pro Mist 1/4 being used in sort of a beach scene here under a pier. And you'll see again that this beautiful, pleasing kind of painterly glow to the sunset, and it's kind of wrapping around some of these the pier timbers, etc. So a really beautiful painterly effect. This is an example of real practicals of the way that a Black Pro Mist works on a couple of young, attractive people here. So we've got real practicals. We've got a little light bulb source. It's kind of hard to see this in a way without getting into the heavier strengths in an example like this when we're sharing screens, et cetera, et cetera. But pay attention to the right side of the screen here as I advance, and I'm just going to click through these. So we're going to march up here from eighth. I'm going to go to a quarter, and pay attention to the halation around the globe, around the bulb, the bare bulb, and to around the highlights on the models. So here we go to a half, and then here we go to 1, and then here we go to 2. So the heavier strengths are much easier for us to see online in a presentation like this. But I will say that in realistic sort of usage nowadays in the digital, people want just a touch. They just want to take the edge off of the video. So eighths, quarters, even halves, are very popular, sort of the lower end of the diffusion. So just take an edge off. I think previously we were talking before, and Glazers was mentioning, yeah, they just want a little kiss. Just want a little kiss of a filter. So just take a little bit of the edge off. So these are more close-ups, portrait of the same people here. And watch through on the right-hand side, sort of compared to no filter on the left. So we've got an eighth, a quarter, and a half. And you can kind of see the subtle, sort of the subtle removal of sort of any kind of blemishes, the smoothing of the skin. It just gives a very pleasing sort, and also a glow to the highlights of the light sources. Just a pleasing sort of look. Here we go, eighth, 1/4, 1/2. And again, these subtleties, it's kind of hard to tell on such a, with differences between these slight differences, quarter, half, etc. Much easier to do, in real life with doing a touch and try and kind of looking at it in the real world. So hopefully sometime soon here, as we get back to normal, I'll be able to get up to Glazer's, that beautiful store in Seattle there, and maybe we'll be able to set up and do a real in life sort of touch and try. But that's kind of giving you an overview. Like I said, Black Pro Mist is it's a type of diffusion filter. Tiffen, we make roughly about 30 different diffusion filters. We're constantly coming up with more. Constantly, we have an ear to the Hollywood community. We have involvement with DPs out there, A-listers all the way down. And we're always kind of tweaking and coming up with new ideas and listening to what they want. So that's about it. So I guess maybe we gave last slide. I want to show this to you. I forgot about this one, but we have lots of information on our website. So if you go to tiffen.com/diffusion, we have these videos showing those models that we just covered, many different types of filters. We also have this wonderful resource, this Diffusion Triangle, which plots many of our different diffusion filters visually against each other. Upper left, you kind of have filters that halate. They have a large amount of halation. Upper right, filters which kind of alleviate contrast and will work primarily on contrast in a scene. And then the bottom, filters that primarily work on the resolution of a scene. Specifically, the Black Pro Mist is kind of up here. It's a filter that halates very much. So that's a very large effect in the Black Pro Mist. If that's something that you don't find quite appealing, you can kind of march down to something more central, like a black satin or some of these different filters that we make, which are not going to have such a halation effect. So I point this out. This is a tool, a resource. Our website's very good on this. And with that, I'll kind of wrap it up and maybe open up discussion, any questions, or let's see where we want to go from here. I'll turn it back over to Glazers.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I'm curious, obviously, about some of those other options. And I know that Devin, my counterpart here, uses, I think you have the quarter?
I use eighth.
An eighth.
For a kiss of halation.
And he's got that on his X100V always. So, okay, we have one question, which is actually pretty valid probably. How does a Black Pro Mist relate to the classic technique of the Vaseline on the filter? Which, I mean, people, obviously there's less to clean up after that, but you have other filters that you had mentioned for diffusion. Are there better options to replace that kind of technique, or is Black Pro Mist where you would head?
Listen, I've been involved in commercial photography and stuff for a very long time. And, we used to put hairspray on the lens, right? You'd have the little Vaseline you'd put on the lens and stuff. The beauty of this, it's infinitely repeatable, right? It's a constant, right? So a Black Pro Mist, the quarter, if I shot this footage I really like, and I was using a Black Pro Mist a half, 6 months from now, I can come back. I don't have to maybe luckily recreate what that golden, magic moment I had with the Vaseline or the spray or whatever. I've got this Black Pro Mist a half that I can pull out, and I know it's a constant, it's a control. I'm going to get the exact same effect. So, that's basically what it is. It's controllable, repeatable, and, you take care of your filter, it's going to last you forever. So. Right.
Well, now, Oak in the chat room is talking about using filters for portraits. So I think my curiosity would be kind of tying into one of the questions that he had asked. What filter strength would you recommend with a Black Pro Mist for something like close-ups of skin? So maybe a tighter, almost like a beauty portrait, but with a little bit of a twist because you'd be using that filter?
Yeah. Kind of a hard thing for me to answer blanket for everybody. I always, you talk to a DP and the first thing you want to tell them is you got to test. You got to test for yourself.
Right.
So testing. Similar thing, I would always get asked, what lens do I need to use for this shot? And I'm like, I don't know. I can kind of guide you, but you're going to shoot your own way. You're going to paint your own picture,
Right.
Roughly, I will tell you, a Black Pro Mist 1/4 is the sort of the most popular filter that we sell, the most popular strength.
Mm-hmm.
So that's certainly a good place to start for someone. But I can't sort of judge, what's going to be right for you. I mean, back in the film days, much heavier strengths were used back in film cameras when you had to capture it on film. We have a director of photography that we're very close friends with, Stephen Poster, and he speaks of, how nowadays with the digital, you have eighths and quarters and halves. Back in the film days, they used to use 1, 2, 3, and 1 was considered very light back then. And meanwhile, today 1 is kind of getting towards the long end, the
heavier side. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I could see that.
You got to test for yourself. The 1/4 is a fantastic place to start. That's what.
Okay, and that's a good question, just in general for people to think about. Is if you're curious about it and you only have a budget that would cover you for 1 to start, then starting with maybe an 1/8 or a 1/4 is a good place to start, and then over time you can build, because it sounds like you could stack them as well. Are there any implications with stacking too? Any issues that could arise?
Well, I think, the more times you start introducing multiple surfaces of glass, in case you're getting any sort of light bouncing off the lens or anything, you're going to introduce more sort of reflections and stuff.
Right.
But, oftentimes people will, certainly in Hollywood, et cetera, people are doing ND filtering. In a matte box, there's ND filtering, possibly polarization, and then you have a diffuser as well. So as long as you kind of control sort of any light, sort of bouncing, flaring off the front lens, there's not really going to be any big drawbacks to stacking a couple of filters.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and Oak is bringing up the vignetting, which I do a lot of stuff with neutral density filters. So, the vignetting can definitely be a little bit too much sometimes, depending on what you're stacking up. So for sure, that's something to consider. Okay, well, we have just a couple more minutes. So those of you tuning in, if you have any more questions, now is your chance. Nando, was there anything else that you wanted to share before we did start to wrap this up?
I just want to thank Glazers for having us. If you haven't been up in Seattle and you haven't been into that beautiful store up there, it's a pretty amazing space. As nice a photography store or a video store I've ever ever been in the country. So it's a really breathtaking place, and you owe yourself a favor to pop into Glazers if you're into photo and video. Take a look around.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. They are an authorized dealer. They carry quite a bit of our stuff. They have a bunch of the Black Pro Mist on board, so a great place to support your local dealer as well.
That is true. We also have a rental house. I don't think the filters are available in rentals, but if there's other gear that you're in need of, rentals is a great way to also explore and expand before you put money in on certain pieces of gear, of course. Okay, well, folks in the chat room are pretty quiet. We have some thank yous coming in, though, so that's always pretty appreciated. Okay, how do you prevent light hitting the lens on the large square filters? Well, as I know for me, my tip is to wrap a scarf around the front of the lens, around those filters to prevent light from coming in between them. But if you have the sun coming right at your filters, do you have any other methods besides the one I just mentioned?
Traditionally, you could use a flag, grip equipment, of course, and fly a flag in front and block the light. If you're one person sort of band and you just gotta use your hand or come up with something, anything you can do to kind of just keep the light from bouncing off the front.
Yeah, I mean, even if you carry like a reflector in your bag, you could hold that up to block the sun, like a really big lens hood, if you want to think about it that way. Okay, this is a good question, and I think we'll wrap it up with this one. With the Black Pro Mist filters, how does that affect like a black and white conversion? Just as it obviously isn't going to show the warmth of it that I've kind of seen, but it would still give you that kind of glowy, dreamy look. Yeah. Okay.
Same thing. We'll take the color tone out of it. We'll take that sort of a hint of warmth that a Black Pro Mist brings in. We'll take that out of the equation. You're still going to have the halation going on, so the glowing around any light sources, and you're going to have definitely a reduce in contrast. So you're going to have a lifting sort of the blacks. They're going to start to come up a little bit deeper gray than a harsh black. So
well, and that's something that we're doing a lot in our processing now. That's kind of an effect that gives us that analog look almost. So a lot of people are processing their files that way. And someone is asking about just using them on their mirrorless cameras. Any of these filters are mounting to your lens, so no matter what camera brand you're on, as long as your lens can take a filter, you should be able to get a filter that will fit it. And what I always like to recommend when people are buying filters is get the filter to fit your widest lens across. So the one that's got the broadest opening there, or the biggest filter size rather, and then use stepping rings to use that filter on your other lenses. And at this point I have so many stepping rings. I have like 20 stepping rings, even though I only have like 7 lenses. But yeah, always get the filter for your biggest filter size if you can only buy one filter right now, especially for something like this, since it's a little more specialty. All right. Well, Nando and Brian, thank you so much for your time today. Everybody who tuned in, thank you for joining us. If you have follow-up questions about filters, please feel free to give the store a call, come in and say hi, or send us an email or send us a little note on social media. We're here for you. Again, check out our website for upcoming events, glazerscamera.com, and then go to the events page and you'll see the other things we have coming up. Things will be a little bit lean as we get into PhotoFest because we're going to have a lot for PhotoFest. And then we'll have some stuff coming up after PhotoFest too. So I'm trying to keep busy and keep stuff on the program for all of you tuning in. All right. Thank you again, Nando and Brian, helping out in the chat room on YouTube. And for all of you tuning in today, I hope everybody has a great week. And we'll see you on Friday.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you.